Right then, James, we've got the rod, reel and rig set up. We're sitting pretty comfortably in the peg here. Whereabouts would you fish?
Right, well, the versatility of a waggler means that I can fish pretty much anywhere within my peg. And I think if I'm fishing a lake for the first time, I'll probably start a line, an area of fishing, probably about 15 metres out. That's going to give me a good option to attract fish to where I'm actually fishing. And I'm also going to feed some bait closer in and look to fish closer into the margins. We've got two nice looking overhanging trees here that I think we should fish next to.
Okay, with the float, how would you go about ascertaining the depth of the water?
Well, that has got to be one of the most important things to think about when you're fishing. The depth of the water is so key, and the only way to do it really, short of jumping in, is to use a plummet. And I've already attached a plummet to the line here, very simple to do. You basically pass the hook through the eye of the plummet and then secure it in the bottom. Very neat. Now, what the plummet does is, the plummet is a lot heavier than the capacity of the float. So what will happen is, if you set the float too shallow, the weight will pull the float under. So actually, where you're looking to fish is deeper than where you've got the float set. So remember what we said about adjusting the float. You adjust the float accordingly by increasing the depth until the float sits correctly in the water. You then know that the plummet is on the bottom.
Ah, right, okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, sure does.
So first of all, we'll just plumb up in the margins by just gently lowering the plummet into the water. And as you can see there, Andy, that weight of the plummet has pulled the float under.
Yeah.
So we're fishing a fraction shallow. So what we'll do, we'll adjust that by just moving the shot up maybe 5 centimetres.
Yeah.
So the depth between the float, in this case, and the plummet is, I don't know, what's that, 60 to 70 centimetres.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll lower it back into the same position. And the float is just touching the surface. So I now know that that float is set absolutely perfect to put the bait just on the bottom, which is always a good starting point to begin fishing with.
Brilliant, James. Thanks for that.
Okay. Now, I also want to be able to plumb up further out where we're going to fish, and in that case I'm going to have to actually cast the plummet. Now, you don't want to cast it too hard because of the additional weight. You might even break the hook length, but it's going to go for miles and make a big disturbance. So I'll just use a very simple underarm cast to just plop the plummet in around about the area that I want to be fishing further out. So I just want to put it just a bit further out, a nice underarm lob. Okay, so as you can imagine, further out in the lake, it's obviously deeper because that's taken the float down really quickly. So what we'll do is we'll quickly adjust the float.
So stay a bit higher?
Yeah, I'm going to add, I don't know, another 40 centimetres on by carefully sliding all the shot up. You'll notice, Andy, when I cast, I do what's called feather the line. Just about the plummet's about to hit the water, I stop the line with my finger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll talk about this more when we talk in depth about casting.
Okay.
So there we go, the float's out. Still too shallow.
Get it back in.
Now, I know this is a bit time consuming, it's the last thing you want to be doing, but it's learning valuable information about the depth of the peg. So I reckon that's going to be around about spot on. Let's have a look. Okay. Almost, I can just see the float under the water. So we'll add another 5 centimetres and we've got the depth on our main line, which is the main area of the peg that we're going to fish. So there you go, that's absolutely perfect. The float's just sitting in the surface film and we've got the depth absolutely spot on. And what's that, would you say? Around about 1 metre 20 centimetres, something like that.
Yeah, 1.5 meters.
Quite a nice little tip to think about. You've plumbed the depth quite accurately, is to measure it against your rod. So what I'll do is I'll hold the hook by the reel and I'll just look up the rod to see what guide it's necked to. So right, yeah. It's just above the second guide on the top section. So you don't have to re-plumb up during the session.
Time.
Yeah, and you don't want to disturb the fish. So it's good to make a mental note of the depth.
Good tip. Now I'm hooked on fishing.